Hey, what's going on, everybody? You're hanging out with Alexander Turbin and Joe Leonardo. This is Comic Books from Coast to Coast. We're chilling out today. It's a nice Sunday afternoon over on Alex's end and morning over on my end. Today, we're looking at classic bit of comic book literature from the 1990s. DC Comics Lobo, the
And
last
more
bizarre
importantly,
movie.
Simon Bisley. The
Yeah,
introduction to Simon Bisley to the North American uh, community.
is this his first bit of work for on like a pro level?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Is that
no, he
right?
did all kinds of stuff in the UK. He had done Slain before
Oh,
this,
okay. So he
and he had
did
done some
the
Judge
2000
Dredd.
AD stuff or
Yeah,
whatever over
yeah,
there. Okay.
yeah. But this was his first big two
Yeah,
work,
I
I
didn't know
guess.
Bisley. I thought Bisley was an American. I didn't know he was an English guy.
No, I think he's Scottish.
He's the weightlifter dude, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He pretty much is Lobo. Like he redesigned. If you've ever seen
Like I
the
give him.
original Lobo from Legion of Superheroes, he looks completely different. Yes, he is a biker, kind of, but he's just like this regular. He's albino, and he does have kind of longish hair. But Simon Bisley really, and I was reading about how Alan Grant and Keith Giffen contacted him, and they were like, "We want Lobo completely redesigned and made into a badass." And he's like, "Okay, I'll make him into a badass." So that's where he came from.
This picture does look like him or whatever, like Simon
Yeah,
Bisley. You know what I mean? Like that does look
yeah.
like him pretty much. Like. So, are you a big fan of this stuff?
Yeah, I am. But I just reread this and I am noticing some things that I don't love about his art. And I think that because he is a painter over being a pen and ink guy and an illustrator, and I think he kind of doesn't know how to do comic books. And so he kind of just does his painterly thing. And when he doesn't know how to do something, he just kind of leaves it. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
there's some definite disconnect with the story and what we see in the panels. You know what I mean? But I wonder
I
if
mean,
like
he's got no backgrounds to speak
yeah.
of.
Well, when he does do backgrounds, I mean, he does do some cool stuff. Like it's got I like a H.R. Giger kind of vibe to it when he does these like background thingies that he'll do or whatever. Like it's almost like like Wally West mixed with like the moderner aesthetic, like the H.R. I always want to say H.R. Giger because he like I feel like he is sort of like designed the modern space aesthetic outside of like the Star Wars paradigm. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he just created that weird sort of like God, no left angles on any of his work, on any of the structure, kind of like, the way all of his alien, like, architecture just looks so like it shouldn't exist or like it couldn't exist or whatever, you know what I mean? Like it couldn't be built in real life or whatever, like, because, everything in the Star Wars aesthetic is just so like, has so much order to it. Everything's gray, everything's silver, everything has these, nice right angles, you know what I mean? But like, Bisley's stuff like this right here like affects way more of like the H.R. Giger idea where everything is built, without angles on it or whatever, and
Yeah.
it's just like
Yeah.
has this weird, architectural design to it, or just very futuristic, swoop and line work, designing the aesthetic nature of the way it looks versus it looking like a functional real thing or whatever. It looks like a big penis right here. Like what the heck?
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I do love it, but I'm also being a little nitpicky. Well, the backgrounds really kind of bothers me. It like he'll do a figure in the foreground and he'll put all of his effort into it, but then he'll be like, "Oh, wait, I have to make a background." And then like this here, and then he'll just kind of pen and ink some characters in the background or whatever. And that's very painterly, because you can't just, you can't paint every figure in the background, or so you use shading and shadowing and all that different
I'm
techniques to kind of fill it in.
I'm curious. I'm curious that like if like he isn't burning out already, you know what I mean? Because like I'm looking at issue 1, and it suffers from what you're talking about. I think to a smaller extent, you know what I mean? Like I feel like there's, he's drawing quite a bit of backgrounds in a lot of these panels, you know what I mean? Like here we have a nice whole room, you know what I mean? Here we have a whole
Yeah.
nice, you know, like console. Here we have a whole nice console layout. Even here on this, we have some nice,
Yeah. Yeah, you're
hallway
right.
elements or whatever, you know what I mean? So like he might be just like, already on the second issue and already just feeling like he's done with it or whatever, you
Yeah,
know what
you
I
might be
mean?
right. Which is crazy because he's obviously getting paid a lot to do this.
Because like if you look at this
But
panel
yeah,
up here at the
yeah,
top, you know what I mean? He's really, blasting out some very high detail stuff, like, and it's very cool looking, as far as that goes. And he's wacky as heck, and he brings, without you say like you're like, oh, he's not an American dude or whatever, and all this makes so much more sense to me now because this whole thing is like a Doctor Who or whatever, you know what I mean? Like
yeah, yeah.
or like it's super like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or something like that or whatever, you know what I mean?
Well,
Like the
yeah,
whole
only
thing.
not as nice. I think he's more heavy metal. Heavy metal meets Doctor Who
Yeah, I mean, it
kind of
just all I
thing.
know is it has this bizarre, just like comedy aesthetic tied into it that I don't really necessarily vibe on myself. Like, you know what I mean? Like all
Yeah,
this stuff,
yeah,
like the Ladies Legion of Decency
yeah,
Parliamentary SWAT
yeah,
unit. You know what I mean,
yeah,
dude? Like,
yeah, yeah. You definitely have to buy into that kind of thing in order to really truly appreciate it. I love it. I think it's hilarious. So
yeah, see, that's what I mean. Like, I know that there's plenty of people that enjoy that kind of thing. I mean,
what's up, N1 Winner 67 and Pearl Hatter? How's it
oh, right,
going?
right. I didn't even see that. Right on. We got some people hanging out with us. That's really cool. Thanks for coming by, you guys. If you have any questions, yeah, be sure to throw it down in the chat and we'll try and like get back to you guys if we have the answer, which
Yeah.
we probably don't. We're a couple of doofuses, but you never know. You guys might have some answers for us, would be more likely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, but no, his space motorcycle here is super badass looking, and you get a lot of cool shots. I mean, some of these he's really putting his backbone into, and I love that. You know what I mean? Like I was looking at this like this cool what is it, the freaking scarf and barf truck stop or whatever,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then he draws all these cool sort of like space rigs or whatever that he's trying to make look a little bit like the, what is it, the Montrosor or Monteros or whatever from Alien, whatever the ship they're in at the beginning of Alien. I can never remember the
Yeah.
name of it.
Yeah.
Montressor or something like that.
Yeah. I definitely think you're right. I think he's having some fatigue in the second issue. Or or less fatigue and more thinking he's gonna do shortcuts just because, you know.
Yeah, blowing up those, because like we got some pretty dense panel, stuff on these. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
Some of these
Yeah.
are really quite interesting too. Like this one right here, you look at all that cross hatching behind the character and how the character
Yeah.
really, like
Well,
like he'll be
his
drawn.
characters. He goes full on with his characters.
It's just
I
like
have
he'll
no
be
problem
drawing
with
them,
the
and
characters.
they'll be very, this whole sort of like squiggle character thing, that he does, where they're just, very loosely defined, just sort of like squiggle, 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 and then they'll just drop in and just kind of really render the heck out of something there. I
Yeah.
mean, it's very odd, dude. It's a little dislocating for me or whatever. I mean, whole way he approaches it, it's just like, because it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. You know what I mean? That like you would have this page that looks like this and then just drop one panel in where you really go in and render the heck out of something and try and turn it like 3D or whatever. And he'll do
Yeah.
that in a handful of places, you know what I mean, where he's just like goofing around and dropping in real sketchy stuff, and then he'll come in and do like this super rendered out face like that right there, you know what I
Yeah.
mean, and just be like, you know what I mean, like that looks almost like photo reference or whatever, and then like
Yeah.
everything else will just look like, these little scribble guys or whatever, like it's bizarre to me.
I kind of think
Um,
he has I think he has kind of the same thing I have, where if he doesn't have a character fully resolved in his head and really know who the character is, I think he kind of maybe doesn't slack a little bit, but definitely doesn't do as well as he does on characters he fully realizes.
yeah, I mean that's always hard. That's always hard. I tend to I don't know, man. I just fall back on generic tropes, but I'm
Yeah.
always trying to take like I mean, my goal is like I want to be like Jim Lee or any of those guys that's like where if you give me a mediocre looking character or maybe even a character you think looks dumb, like I will take it and draw it and make it look awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like that's how I try to approach it, dude. Like, I will take your doofy idea and I will make it look as real as hell as I can, and like, I did this one for a guy where he had this lobster. It was like a lobster man. You know what I mean? It was like
Yeah.
a lobster. It was like essentially like the rhino, but it was in a lobster suit. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And dude, I drew the heck out of that thing, man. And it looked pretty badass when I was done. Like it was all like, like it had like lobster like antennas that were like whips that were made out of like chrome and steel and giant lobster chrome claws and all the hinges were all robotic and all had all these like apertures on them for turning and things, you know what I mean? Like I rendered the heck out of that thing till it looked like it could have been any Spider-Man bad guy or whatever. And I try to like do that, like even like when you threw like the Dr. Zane character at me or whatever, I mean, of course I just go to like a generic like attractive scientist character or something like
Yeah.
that, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, but sometimes it can be harder, like if you don't have like the robot, I think was kind of tough for me at first. Like when you threw that robot guy, like which I really haven't given a name because like he has three different characters inside him. So
He's got more than that. He's got hundreds, thousands.
like I said, I just have him call the whoever's he's talking to in there. I just have him call that
Right.
person's name or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
So haven't really given that character a name. Like you know what I'm saying? Like so, I don't know what his
Yeah.
actual name is. Like, but that character was hard to
Okay, so
really.
why don't you you want to go through the first issue,
Yeah, for
the
sure.
story?
But yeah, that character was hard to draw, like to visually kind of like figure out how it looks or whatever, just kind of based on the way, because the way you and I draw are very different in a lot of ways. And the characters
Yeah,
you
definitely.
design, like aesthetically, it might be hard for me to kind of like get an idea how to bring it into my style or whatever, And at the same
Yeah.
time, you want to do that without changing the character, you know what I mean? You're not trying to change the way it looks or whatever. You're just trying to like bring it into whatever your aesthetic without losing what it is, but still giving it enough of your whatever you do to make it clearly identifiable as your thing. Art is tricky, man, super tricky.
It is. It is super tricky.
So you read the second half there, you have it all
Yep.
dialed in or whatever.
Yep. I've
Okay,
got the second half. So why
so I
don't
guess
you
we'll be covering one and two today.
yeah, why don't you tell
And
us who did the writing and the art and everything?
now the story by Keith Giffen, I guess he also did the breakdowns on this. And
Oh, he
Alan
did.
Grant did. Yeah, Alan Grant did the actual writing,
Yeah, he
and
did the
Simon
breakdowns
Beasley
here
did the
too.
art. So I guess this is basically his story for the most part. You know what I
Keith
mean?
Giffen. Yeah, he did a lot of Legion and Legion of Superheroes. Just at a certain point, I think they were like, "Here, just take this and run with it." He also did some of the writing for Justice League. I think those humorous
Yeah,
Justice Leagues.
yeah, I remember that. Yeah, the ones with the real expressive faces and all that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure that's why I started um, reading what am I thinking of? League of Superheroes. Is that what they're called? League of Superheroes? No.
Legion of
Legion.
Superheroes.
Legion of Superheroes and then Legion. Yeah, because he rebranded Legion of Superheroes into Legion. And then after that, that is when they came out with Lobo.
I gotta admit, dude, like as much as I like the Legion characters or whatever, I have never read it or never got into it at all because it just seems so intimidating, the amount of like
It is.
history or whatever and characterization and
Yeah.
characters involved in that story. It's just too much. You know what I
I
mean?
always thought it was dumb. I always thought Legion of Superheroes was dumb. Like, Ice Boy and, Radiation
Bouncing boy and
Lass
all that
or,
stuff. Yeah.
I always just thought it was really silly, super like third 40s, 50s superhero stuff that I just really had no interest in. But then I found out that Nightcrawler and Colossus,
Hmm.
was it just Nightcrawler and Colossus, were originally supposed to be in Legion of Superheroes,
Yeah.
but they rejected them.
Yeah. I remember that. I
So
can totally see.
I can't say that.
I can see both of those guys being in Legion too, man. They just both are
Yeah, I
wacky
can.
enough
Yeah.
to,
Yeah,
like,
so can I.
yeah,
They have that look, that kind of goofy, wacky look.
yeah.
And but that's why I liked Legion, and that's why, I like Keith Giffen. I liked what he was doing with the Justice League, and then the artwork I thought was really great in Legion of Superheroes. So that's why I started collecting it. And then when it turned to Legion, I was just really thought that was really fantastic because it was turning it into more of a um, what's that? What's that Marvel version of Legion of Super? The
I
Alien
don't know.
Legion. Alien Legion.
I'm saying I'm not familiar. I don't even know
You've
Marvel
never
had
heard
a.
of Alien Legion? Carl
I don't know
Potts
what that is. Mm-mm.
and what's
Who?
his name? Yeah,
Say
yeah.
who's in that?
Huh?
Who's in Alien Legion?
Carl Potts and
No, I mean what character?
Strowman. I don't know of any of the characters. I'm not like a
Oh,
huge fan.
Alien Legion. I know what you're
Alien
talking
Legion.
about. You're
Yeah.
talking about that Star Trek thing they did or whatever, right? Is that what that is?
Yeah,
Alien
well,
Legion?
it's a little
It has
Star
the like.
Trekky. They have
It's sort
like
of
yeah,
Star Trek meets
they
freaking
have
what is
like
it?
costumes that are
Starship
kind of like
Troopers or something.
Halo-ish.
Yeah, yeah. It's sort of like Star Trek meets Starship Troopers or whatever.
Yeah,
But
yeah, exactly,
like
exactly.
Jugger Grimrod.
Yeah, yeah, Grimrod. Yeah.
Yeah, he has the like the gauntlets that have the pull string on them or whatever, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? And like, he
yeah,
strangles everybody, like, and the captain who's like a snake or whatever is like a Medusa or whatever,
yeah,
but like,
yeah, yeah,
that's right. I have that. Do you have that?
yeah.
We
Yeah,
should do that.
I have a few issues for those.
I have number one.
Oh, do you? I don't have
Yeah,
number one yet.
I
I
have
don't
number
think I
one.
do. I might have number one. I'll check. I'll check. But yeah, so that's why I was into Legion of Superheroes and the art. Uh, Adam Hughes,
Is that right?
one of those really clean artists. I don't know if it was Adam Hughes or who's that other couple that the Dobsons. I think I'm thinking, one of them did it because it was super clean looking stuff. And so, yeah, but then Legion was even, came up with some really cool stuff. So then they came out with Lobo. So let's get into number
I'm gonna
one.
say it's fun how like all these things can branch off and how you could, I mean, how someone could come along and take a, third, fourth, fifth, sixth tier character, like, that's in a fourth tier freaking, story universe that
Yeah,
people aren't even that interested in, and spin it into this really cool thing. I remember when it came out that I thought it was essentially like DC desperately trying to get their hands on a Wolverine type is kind of what
yeah,
I
yeah. I'm
perceived
sure
this as when
that
it
was
came out,
it too.
But yeah, we'll get into the story here. And we come on like, and I honestly like I don't know that much about Lobo, and I'm not, I'm not the hugest Simon Beasley guy. Like I would take Bill Sienkiewicz over this guy myself, you know what I mean? So I don't know that much about his art either. I mean, I followed it
Yeah,
and he's pretty dang good. I mean, obviously no one's gonna argue how good he is, but
yeah, yeah,
it's not exactly, doesn't exactly speak to me as far as like a lot of the aesthetics and the things he does. It doesn't mean it's
I
not
love his
rad.
painted stuff. I love his painted covers and stuff. And
It,
his cover for #1 just sold for like $198,000.
that's
That
this
cover
right
right
here,
there.
and it is
Yeah,
absolutely gorgeous. I was just looking. I was just noticing all these like beautiful little like color flecks right here. He
yeah,
does to create like line work and stuff. It's absolutely
yeah.
gorgeous. The hair,
So
it's
as a
beautiful.
painter, he's just phenomenal. It's
And
just
even
his
this, you can see
comic
it's
book
like
work.
it's somewhere between like the American values and like the European values. You have like this very American looking figure work, right? With a lot of like heavy bicep stuff. And I'm guessing that's like the Judge Dredd thing,
Yeah,
maybe right
yeah,
here. Like, and then we have like this Mobius line work in the background, what I mean? That is full on freaking like, Euro French, like
yeah,
Droulet or whatever, like heavy metal stuff, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
full on. So it's like two different styles being meshed very effectively to create one singular idea. But it's very European to me, or whatever. It's just
yeah, yeah. It
dolphins
is.
swimming in the background or whatever. So we open up on him in this like space dive or whatever, and he's just uh hanging out and doing his thing, being like so cool and such a badass, and talking about how upset he is that somebody wrote a biography of him that he didn't approve of. Just bizarre, like like right
Yeah.
off the bat. What I mean? It's so like weird. And he's doing like Thanos and just like sitting out here like on a rock floating through space or something. Lamenting to himself that someone would do him like that, and he gets a call from essentially like what, the Bounty Hunters Guild or something. What I mean? Like if this was
Now,
Mandalore,
isn't that something? He's the leader of Legion.
this guy Docs.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I didn't understand that.
Rebranded Legion of Superheroes into the Legion. Legion.
Okay, so like, yeah, I have no context for that. It's just like,
Yeah,
yeah, he gets a
yeah.
call. Oh, I have a Legion job for you. Okay, yeah.
Right,
So
right.
that's the so the he, is this this is not Legion of Superheroes. This is like the Starship Legion, like Alien
It's no,
Legion.
it's Legion of Superheroes rebranded as Legion, and that is a great ancestor of Brainiac.
Oh,
Not the
okay,
villain Brainiac, but the Legion of Superheroes Brainiac, who
right.
is
The
a
Brainiac that dates Supergirl or whatever, like
right, right. Yeah,
Brainiac Boy or whatever, like.
yeah, yeah.
But this is not Space Legion or whatever, or
Yes.
Alien Legion.
Not Alien Legion. It's because that's a Marvel
Okay,
thing. But this
yeah,
is
okay.
Legion of Superheroes rebranded into Legion, kind of like how they did Justice League. They turned it into they took away
Unlimited or
Justice
whatever.
League of America, and then they made
Right.
it just Justice League, and then they made Justice League International. It's kind of like
Yeah,
that.
so he's being given an assignment, or whatever, and he's just like, oh yeah, I'll do this for you, and he gets sent out to collect this person, and he doesn't seem to be aware of exactly who this person is, and
Yeah,
they're all just making sure that he knows that the thing has to be brought back alive. Alive, 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 because I guess he gets frustrated a lot of times and accidentally kills people along the way, when being the
accidentally.
space dude or whatever. He's like a space version of the Big Lebowski here with like, anger issues or whatever.
Yeah,
And then we got this quick moment where we have a couple of these Legion characters that are like discussing, the decision to actually have Lobo do this, job or whatever, that maybe it's a little foolish. And he just reassures her that Lobo's going to do exactly as Lobo's been designed, which seems, kind of off character because the guy's clearly insane and is always like going
right,
off
right.
program
But
or whatever.
in here, do they have this in your comic too, where it has some things you need to know about Lobo, or things you
Yeah,
should know
yeah,
about
yeah.
Lobo?
Now I read the
Yeah,
first one right here. I did. I
yeah.
read The Serpent in Eden or whatever. Have you read this? These.
That's that's not in here. I don't think this is. Now I got to find it. But you keep talking
Well,
about it.
this first one just talks about like off from the story real quick. This little chapter one of Serpent in Eden, it talks about Lobo being born.
Yeah,
How like Zarnia is the most peaceful place in the universe. It's the most perfect place in the universe with the
yeah,
most perfect people in the universe with the most
yeah,
perfect society in the universe. You know what I
yeah,
mean? they don't even have a word for war or conflict. Like the closest word they have is like some version where it's like, oh, we should sit down and have a hot chocolate together and like stare into each other's eyes longingly while we figure out why it is we don't have the same perspective on this idea. Like, it's like, you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing or whatever. And it doesn't exactly explain like who Lobo's parents are or anything. It just says that he's the midwife who delivered him felt a strange, unknown sensation at the moment of birth. At hindsight, we know that to have been terrified apprehension. The devil, she screamed, the devil incarnate. I
Yeah.
knew what she was talking about. And she's the first person to ever have to be like sent to a mental institution in this society or whatever, like being there when Lobo was being born or whatever. I mean,
So
but this
does
stuff
that
is just so
say
ridiculous.
he kills everybody?
Yeah. He
Yeah.
cut a swath through the intellectual bliss of Zarnian education system. Never one to study if he could beat up on a classmate, so he's just a bully and throws temper tantrums. Blah blah. For one, so create concept police. She tells him, you have to create prisons before she dies after being exposed to him. Like, uh, let's see. It was a long time of dying. There was excited police, punishment, prison. What in the name of occupation? Meanwhile, in the classroom, Zarnian blood spilled, bruised bodies, broken bones marked the serpent's progress. An era was over, and the far glasses of muffled drum began to beat the heralding of passing. So they're basically talking about how, you know, him very like the very act of him being brought into existence destroyed the perfection of their universe. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like the
Well, he
second
kills them all. He kills them all.
he
He
kills
kills
them all,
all the
yeah, but
right.
he
That's
isn't.
why.
This is not that. He's not there yet. This is just the very fact that he was born. He kills everybody in the room when he is born. His mother, the lady that delivers him, goes insane.
Yeah.
He grows up in an orphanage where he beats and murders everybody around him. Goes to school where he does the same, and
Yep.
is just slowly growing up a psychopathic monster in
Yep.
a perfect world of perfect people. So he's just like the ultimate bully in a world of people that can't fight back.
Right. Right. And then, but then after that, he kills everybody.
Yeah,
Like
well,
the
I,
name of the story for that one is The Last Arzinian, because
I was gonna
this is
say, I'm sure they're
part
probably,
two.
like, because yeah, chapter 2 is overkill. Is there a chapter 3 in here, or maybe you got to get the next books to have the rest of the chapters? Maybe we only get 2 of those per.
Well,
Yeah,
this is
looks like
part two of The
that's what
Last
I mean. Okay,
Arzinian.
no, and then there's a third chapter in here, an interview with Death, and this
Uh,
is a transcript from Legion where they're like evaluating him, and it's like written as it's written as a transcript, where you have
right.
Lobo talking, then the doctor, then Lobo, then the doctor, where it's all recorded like they would if you were in a if you were being like subpoenaed or something or whatever.
Right. Right.
But back to
But
the
then
main story here.
mine has 10 things to know if you ever encounter Lobo. Um, One is the mind of Lobo is a wondrous thing. He can instantly analyze any opponent, weighing up their abilities and defense perfectly. Lobo is a man of his word, and if he makes a promise, he will keep it. He's a perfect tracker. His favorite color is sepulchre black. So there's a whole bunch of funny things in there like that.
It's
But
all
the
written
fact that he
like
always keeps his word.
it's super written like Hitchhiker's Guide to the
It
Galaxy.
is.
Like these
It
little
is.
pieces over here are super written like
Yep.
Hitchhiker's Guide.
Yep.
Oh, we got like 7 people watching. Yeah, that's cool,
Nice.
man. You guys, thanks for coming by. We appreciate
Yeah.
everybody watching
Welcome.
today. Um, so yeah, back to the main story. So here he is. He's at this like space penitentiary, picking up his, his bounty hunted thing that he's got to bring back alive. And this is a prisoner in a deadly facility, and apparently this person was tutoring the prince of some kingdom. Oops, I hit my camera here. And was locked up for flunking their prince or whatever. So there's some sort of like, Republican horror house like society where if you do anything against like people in authority, you'd be locked up.
Yeah.
And he's coming in there and he's telling them, oh, this place is so tight and we're all so tough. Don't you try nothing with us. And we heard all about your reputation and blah, blah, blah. Don't even think you can get away with anything with us. And be careful with this person because, they did this and they did that. And he's like, since when is being a tutor, a crime? And he's like, well, flunking the king is or king's prince is a crime, So they're coming in here and he's giving Lobo the what for, don't you me, boy. Maybe we'll let you get away with that kind of stuff, crap on Karen. But nobody us around here unless you got my say so. Get it? And he's just like, Lobo's like, I don't like this dude at all. So the door closes, and the first thing we see is the guy just drops down dead. You know what I mean? And he's like,
Yeah.
oh, miss, I think the chief just had a heart attack or possibly something else that's entirely fatal. So, Lobo just kills this guy for being too talkative. And then we completely cut away, which I found very disorienting in the story when they did this. I had to go back and double check it,
Huh.
and it was like, what the heck? Because
That's
it
the
just cut
worst.
right to
That's the worst.
general interest bookstore, Blake number 7. Okay. So now we're in a riot at a bookstore, and this is like a bunch of Lobos, like the
Yeah.
sons of Lobo essentially here. You know what I mean? They all got his like glasses on and they're all trying to like wear his cool leather jacket. And they're led by this big weird dude who looks right out of AD or whatever, you know what I mean? Like,
2080.
yeah, it totally looks like right out of freaking a Judge Dredd story or something,
Yeah.
And he's their leader, and they're very upset over this unauthorized biography of Lobo. Like, who writes this crap? And you can imagine like having to draw this. So I can just imagine somebody coming to me and telling me to draw this stuff. I'd be like, what? I don't know if I could do this story because my art, I don't know how to incorporate humor into my art like this. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Like, I just, because I've never done it and it just seems so bizarre to me. And it's just like they do it naturally here. It's like, it's
Well, it's a
definitely a
dark
talent.
humor too.
Yeah, it's a skill unto itself to be able to just like, you know what I mean? Be given a thing like this where they're like, oh, it's a bunch of guys. They're at a bookstore and they're trashing it, and you're like,
Yeah.
what? Like, you really want me to draw that? Yeah, they're not at it's like a future bookstore and they all look like mutants. And you're like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
like what the heck? Like, it cannot be easy to visualize this stuff and think what the heck you're going to draw. You know what I mean?
Well, I
So I
guess
always
I was
sympathize
I
with
was
that.
I was reading that when Bisley started doing this, he would get the script or whatever from Alan Grant and Keith Giffen, and then he would do the art, and then he would return it, and then they would have to rewrite stuff because he would either add characters or take characters away or do
Yeah,
what
I
he
can
basically
only
did whatever the hell he
imagine.
wanted to, and then they're like, all right, well we'll rewrite whatever.
Dude, I mean, that's just kind of how I think you have to work when you're multiple people are working on a story. I just think there has to be that error for
Oh yeah,
the
definitely.
reality of what can be created on the page versus what you have in your head. I mean, it has to
Yeah,
be a,
yeah,
a meeting in the middle of that thing, because it's very difficult at times, and I find it works out best that way. I mean, when you sent me those pages that, for the end of Alliance, you were thinking that I was going to have to draw a couple pages in between them to make it all come together. But it was like, all I had to do was just look at them and move them around a little bit. And they
yeah.
were perfect all by themselves.
Right.
But yeah, so anyways, disgruntled biker gang of Lobo fans at a bookstore trashing the place, and now they're going to go hunting for they want the lady that wrote the biography. They want to teach her a lesson for talking bad about Lobo. So quick interlude with those guys, and then we're back to the main man, and we get this gorgeous full page shot. And
Yeah.
this was the first thing that he did when they gave him the book thing. He's just like, okay, let's sit down and knock out this awesome. He's like, I'm going to pose for this in my favorite leather vest,
Yeah.
with a
Yeah.
Dracula collar on it. And this is basically him posing for it. It's got to be. It just looks it's too photographic and to not have reference on this thing. You know what I mean? But still a gorgeous shot. And no background on this, but very painterly, just like you talk about with some like squiggles and stuff and some really nice colors here.
Yeah. He draws like he paints.
And yeah, and then we got this, and he's just like it's supposed to be a realization as he's just like, oh my god, it's the evil grandma from Weapons, like right here. Like, no, but did you watch Weapons?
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't she look like the grandma from Weapons?
Oh yeah, she does.
I mean, like she's look like the grandma from Weapons, like. But it's Lobo's 4th grade teacher. Apparently, he's very, very
See,
upset to see her.
I laughed. I laughed then. I'm laughing now. He has
Like,
to transport his teacher.
and the real zinger for poor old Lobo here is that all these guys are supposed to be dead. He really was very methodic and very careful when he went out of his way to kill every single person in the society and world he comes from. And somehow or another, his fourth grade teacher, whom he utterly despises, has slipped under his radar and managed to write an unauthorized autobiography of Lobo and is now in trouble for that, apparently.
I don't think she's never acts afraid of him though. I think
No, she's not afraid of him at all. It's
yeah.
kind of funny, dude, because like when I was like band performer guy in the 90s, and all my bandmates used to, we all lived in a place together in this, little mobile home park or wherever. And I ended up living right next door to my kindergarten teacher. And
Yeah.
she used to always make me feel so bad, because I just felt like such a delinquent or whatever,
Yeah.
like every time I saw her. And she would always be like, "Oh, Joe, it's never too late, to fix the path you're on," and stuff like that, And just like, "Oh my God, Mrs. Jenkins, I don't want to see you." Like, terrible.
Yeah.
So I fully understand how Lobo feels. Like, I get it
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
But so, anyways, he's super upset. He's calling the Legion guy here, and he's just like, "You bastard! You didn't tell me that this was
That's
my
it.
old teacher." Like, he's like, really upset, and he's just reiterating, "Hey, man, you got to bring this lady in alive, 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 alive." Is what he keeps telling him. And he's just like, "Ah!" And then we cut over here to these like
Wait
very.
one second. Do you think that because Jason Momoa is going to be recast, or what? This is what I've heard. Instead of Aquaman, he's going to be Lobo. Do you think that that's a good idea, or you think he
Oh,
should have been
dude, it's
just
funny
be?
because when they first, back when Zack Snyder casted him, I thought
Yeah.
that's who he was going to play. I thought, oh, well, he's either going to play Lobo or maybe they're going to have him play Doomsday. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, those
Yeah.
were the first two things. I never thought Aquaman for a second. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I thought for sure, like, oh yeah, he'll either be Lobo or maybe they have him as Doomsday. It's got to be one of those two things.
Yeah.
And yeah, dude, it was weird that they cast him as. I mean, he obviously Lobo. You know what I mean? Like, he looks. You
It
got
looks. It looks
to
like
paint
him.
him white. Yeah, he
Yeah.
already, put the little makeup under his eyes and paint him white, and he's off you go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Put those little chains on him, like. But yeah,
I
I
did
even
think he
could
was a great. I
picture.
did think he was a great Aquaman, though.
Yeah, because they were doing the. It's so funny on the way they all riff on each other or whatever. Because it's like his Aquaman looks more like freaking Namor
Namor. Yeah.
from Jay Lee or whatever. Like when Jay Lee
Yeah.
was drawing
Yeah.
Namor, that's what
Yeah.
Jason Momoa's Aquaman looks like.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, anyways, he's over here, and I could very much hear like Jason Momoa's voice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
in
Definitely.
the dialogue, and so it'll be easy for him to grab onto that.
Yeah.
And then like over here, we have these sort of like very HR Giger once again looking like this. This looks like it could be like influenced by like the Harkonnen sand crawlers from like Jodorowsky's Dune or whatever by H.R. Giger and frickin' Mobius, because they look just like this. They look like big fat babies like crawling along. Of course, that movie never got made, but if you ever see any of the production art,
Yeah.
the Harkonnen sand crawlers look just like that. So this could be very well influenced by that kind of thing. And then we got these like this hilarious sort of league of what do they call it? The auxiliary ladies over here, but in the Lobo universe, and they're very upset about unauthorized biography of Lobo by Miss Tribb's lawyers, and they're sure to appeal. And they're like, "Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear," because I'm guessing they probably are friends with the fourth grade teacher.
I think
And
they hate the fourth grade teacher.
is that what it is? And
I
I
think
got,
so.
like they seem like peers or whatever, Oh yeah,
Right.
it's like
Right.
she's the one who wrote that sleazy piece of trash, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that hussy." You're right. So they
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
approve of what she's created, and they think of her as a pornographer, and so like they're gonna,
Hilarious.
take care of that quickly here. Ladies Legion of Decency Parliamentary SWAT unit, which is just ridiculous. But you got to really enjoy all this right here. You know what I mean? Like that's very interesting. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm doing a piece like for one of my daughters for Christmas that has a character that's like this. It's a Disney character from a Disney film, but I'm trying to find a way to approach it, where it feels more tactile, how to turn like that Disney cartoon squat aesthetic into something more rendered or whatever. And that's pretty fascinating
Yeah.
to me right there.
Yeah.
So now, they're off on, their adventure together, and she's just ragging on him the whole time about how he's nothing he does is good enough. His bike is dirty, and she would have preferred to take a nice cruiser and or a nice limo or something, and how he never washes it. And she won't stop talking, and and she doesn't like the tone of his voice. And it's basically like your basic like babysitter
Driving him
taking care of a
crazy.
yeah, unwanted, thing. So like he's just being taxed to his fullest, to deal with her, and he always has to remember he's got to bring her back alive. And we stopped
Yeah,
at this like cheesy little gas station truck stop along the way, which I thought was so much fun. And coloring this must have been so hard because it's just these big empty spaces or whatever, and they're
yeah,
just throwing
yeah.
down
I was
these
just
like
thinking that.
spacey greens or whatever and
Yeah,
grays, you know what I mean? Because you just never know what to do with something like this. If you should go all silver or all gold or something like that. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like you look
yeah,
at something like this and there's a lot of different ways to go. And it's like, this is pretty interesting. It's pretty brave too. And I like it quite a bit. I like this down here with all these blues pushing it forward. You know what I mean? And the greens kind of pushing that back, giving it a little bit of space because it's a little flat. You know what I mean? Off, like just off hand, but the colors really add some dimension to it.
yeah,
And I like this little, we got this little sort of like, establishing shot dialogue where you're hearing all the people in the dining room, having different conversations over each other, which I thought was pretty
yeah,
fun right there too. And then like years like we talked about before, with just like having to come up with a room full of characters that you don't have any like, really knowledge of what should be taking place or what's going on. I'm like, these guys back here are just like, little doodles, and a lot of these guys in the
yeah,
background are just like loose, soft doodles. Pretty fun stuff, but still Lobo with his really hard anatomy on his like, biceps and everything, beautiful stuff, man. I mean, like I said, it's always hard to visualize these kind of things, but essentially he leaves to go to the bathroom to, get his crap together and try and, you know, get a grip on his shortening fuse as he, is going to explode or whatever, dealing with his fourth grade teacher who's just driving him up the wall. And meanwhile, she's back at the, at the diner, and she ends up rubbing some of the local patrons there the wrong way with her over the top, I'm the teacher in the room aesthetic that she like corrects
yeah,
everything everybody says and everybody's like, language and everybody's dialogue. So Lobo gets, a chance to blow off some steam, and come in and beat up a gun bunch of dudes, and gives us a great excuse to finally get him into a good fight scene, which we really haven't seen in the whole story so far. And it's a lot of fun. And we get a lot of that really beautiful painterly, you know, uh, stuff from, the biz, man, like the stuff he's known for, all these like great, underlit muscles and all that,
yeah,
beautiful
yeah,
freaking, like all these like really nice forearm stuff, and these crazy looking faces that just look like so bizarre and just like so painterly and artistic. And somehow he makes it all look, aesthetically like one piece, you know what I mean? Like it all
yeah,
just fits into this universe, even though clearly there are a lot of techniques and a lot of different things happening here. You know what I mean? Like you can't help but think that there's quite a few different contrasting, artistic values taking place, to create this aesthetic. Because like you say, he's a painter. So that's
yeah,
always like going to be the first way he approaches things. So it's interesting to see a way, someone like him breaks down, you know, the fluidity of movement and things like that, because like,
yeah,
when you're showing something moving, you're not trying to show every part of it. You're trying to show the feeling of the impact of it, or the, the velocity of a movement, or those kind of things. And it's always interesting to see where people approach, and where they get
yeah.
to, like
I
this shot of
I was
him
I was
kicking this guy in
reading
the behind.
I was reading his two biggest influences were Frank Frazetta and Bill Sienkiewicz. So,
You
it makes
absolutely see
sense.
it. And then it
Yeah,
turns into this weird European thing in the end,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
so it ends with our guy over here in the Legion, and they just received an alert. There's a major fracas at the 66 truck stop, and he's like, oh, and he's like, Lobo's in there with the prisoner, and he's effing dudes up, and Lobo's being Lobo, you know. Oh, we can figure this out, or well, you can figure out the rest. Lobo's being Lobos, and they're
Lobo's
bashing
being
heads.
Lobo.
So he's like, better send a unit out there, strata, but no account is Lobo to be interfered with. So, he's sending this dude out to make sure that things keep going on track, but hey, don't interfere. He's kind of the order. And he's like, well, I don't understand. And he's like, you're not paid to understand, man. Just do it. And this guy's obviously got some sort of plot he's got cooking. And he's like, excellent. This is going better than I ever dreamed. And he's like, like you said, he's like a brainiac or something. So who knows,
Yeah.
like, what he's got going on. And then we close on another, you know, full on Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy moment, as we're just riding through the emptiness of space on his, space hog. And we just are treated to the warbling, endless, voice of his fourth grade teacher ragging on him from the back seat. That's your trouble. Always thinking with your fists. You completely destroy the poor man's diner. Why can't you be a good boy? Get a haircut. Proper cut. Find a nice girl. Settle down. And you just hear this uncontented scream from the darkness. Ah! So that's the end.
That's awesome. I love that.
But a great. You know what I mean? If you're trying, it's just so unusual for me because, like, this is a James Gunn story right here. You know what I mean? Like, this
Yeah.
is,
Yeah,
this is
it
perfect for his kind of aesthetic. This is perfect for his kind of filmmaking. This is his type of character that he's really familiar with. He's really good with this kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, you could switch out Lobo for Rocket Raccoon, and get almost the exact,
Peacemaker.
the exact same kind of story or whatever. And so it doesn't naturally, and I'm much more on the other, like the Alex Ross side of things, where everything is so dramatic and everything is, blah, whatever. So
Yeah.
stuff like this always catches me off guard because it's not naturally what my go-to, I mean, because I don't really, but this
Well,
was
you
a really,
obviously like the looks of it
yeah.
because you bought it.
Yeah, this is a fun story, and this is my original copy. This is not like I
Yeah.
went out and rebought this, whatever.
Right.
I bought this in 1990, from the comic book shop.
Yeah.
It's from the comic book shop because it doesn't have the, if it was from the store, if I bought it at the
Right.
7-Eleven, it would have the
Yeah.
little barcode on it or whatever.
Which
So
are
this was
did you know that the barcode are worth more than if they don't have the barcode?
is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't
Because
know that.
the theory is that there's less good ones out there because the people that bought stuff from newsstands weren't like, you go if you're a comic book collector, you go to the comic book store and then
Sure.
you read it and then you bag it and then you put it away. But if you're going to the newsstand or wherever, you read it, you grab it, you throw it in the back of your car, you loan
Yeah.
it to your or you give it to your kid or whatever.
Yeah, I
So
was gonna say,
there's less quality
I think that's the idea
copies.
of it, is that probably, like, if you're buying it from the comic book store, you're probably an adult and you're buying it for your
Yeah.
collection. And the idea
Yeah.
is if it was bought at the market, it was probably bought for a kid who's just reading
Yeah.
it and throwing it out or something, I mean,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So I could definitely see how that, might make sense. So you want to go ahead and check out the story on number
I
2 on your side?
actually, I actually have to go,
Oh, okay.
unfortunately. But maybe we can next time I can go through this and then we can go on to whatever the next thing that we're looking at. Because
Yeah,
I really
that's
would like to
something.
go through issue 2 because it's a lot of what's going on in the first one, and really the story is negligible. It's a lot of excuses for Lobo to do Lobo things, like you were
Yeah, for
saying.
sure. And
But
just to have little jokes along the way, and
yeah, yeah, but
and
there's like some fun little interesting things. Like she escapes from him and she goes to this ballet. Only the ballet is people killing each other with chainsaws. So Lobo loves it. So
that's pretty cool.
yeah, yeah. So it's a
That's
lot of funny
awesome.
stuff, fun and funny stuff. So yeah, but unfortunately I have to go.
Oh,
Um,
no worries, man. We'll
yeah,
just keep it
yeah.
short and sweet today. If you guys watch the show to the end, thanks for hanging out with us. The few people we had on here today, thanks for so much for coming by and hanging us. We really appreciate it when people
Yeah, we do.
I love it when if you guys leave any comments or anything, any thoughts you have down in the comment section. Alex loves to talk comic books with people, and
I do.
we're always looking for interesting thoughts or ideas on the show. If you have any, please leave them behind. If you're a comic book artist and you'd like to be featured on the show, please contact Alex. One of his great loves is finding new, interesting comic book creators featuring their art. Alex and I are both comic book creators. Alex is currently just finishing up his first complete issue of Morgrim the Cyclops. That's a fantastic looking comic book right there, Alex. I love the cover on that. I love those
Thank you.
colors. And I know that Morgrim is going through the finishing operations to be on Kickstarter, if I'm not
Yep.
mistaken.
Yep. They're making sure my identity and all of my financial things are correct. So once they're done with that, which takes a couple days, then I can go on to the next step.
Get your final approval and start moving forward. That's amazing.
Yep.
We're looking forward to that, and we'll be definitely probably be doing shows on that in the very not too far distant future.
Yep.
I'm a comic book creator, Six Lords of Sound. New copies available now. If you would like to get your hands on a copy of this, please contact me by direct messaging me on Instagram. Um, this is Entropy Alliance. This is Entropy Alliance 1 with a handful of amazing artists, including Alexander Turbin and myself. This is the inspiration for the comic we're working on and going forward with the story. And this comic is also available from me on Instagram, or you can get copies of any of these comics on Alex's website,
Comics.
comicscreatormarketplace.com.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, comicscreatorsmarketplace.com. And we're always looking for new and interesting people to collaborate with. And Alex is a comic book publisher. And if you'd like to have something printed or published, please contact Alex. He's very talented and very freaking capable of publishing things, and far more economically feasible than a lot of the bigger sites are. So if you only have a few issues you'd like to get published, it's a lot easier to get something done along those lines than it is if you go through Wellspring, where you might have to publish 50 or 80 or 100
Yeah.
copies to get a decent number on the so just make all these ideas available to you. And once again, this is Comic Books from Coast to Coast. I'm Joe Leonardo. I'm hanging out with my buddy Alexander. Alex, is there any last thoughts you'd like to put out before we get out of here?
Nope. You want to give them their marching orders, as they
All
used
right,
to
you
say.
guys know how we do it. At the
Casey.
end of the day, we like to create. We like everyone else to create. And the order for all of our creating friends out there, keep on creating. You guys have a great day. Thanks.